So graphs are just a way of interpreting that data by making observations and true statements. So as in the growing graph, you could interpret it that it was getting taller, it followed a pattern, and that's what the treasure boxes guide does. They have two different activities in our treasure box guide. The first one is then to take your shoes off again, so one shoe, but instead of making piles, you're going to put it on this big floor graph. This floor graph does come with the treasure box kit if you ever choose to check it out. So after you have your piles of shoes for the children to see, it still is a little difficult to interpret maybe how many shoes are in one pile versus how many shoes are in another pile. So using a graph just is another way to interpret it so that you can know how many. So if we were putting our shoes, the children would decide how they would sort them, and maybe shoes with laces might go here. And I would take a little card and put it, shoes with laces, and then we would line up our shoes going down the graph. When you use graphs, you work from left to right, or you turn it the other way and work from bottom to top. Another way to do graphs is just this kind of graph. Now, on your getting ready activities, you were going to print this out. So if you haven't done so, go ahead and print this out because you will need it. Because you're going to take your treasure boxes and you're going to graph your treasures. And so, first of all, you would sort them, and then you could graph them on these grids to be able to make some true statements or some observations about your graphs. There are three types of graphs that you can use. One is a concrete graph, and that's when you use the real shoe items. You use real materials, like if you brought in some stuffed bears and you were graphing the bears. So those are the real items. The second way to make a graph is a pictorial graph. So if you took a graph like this one and then drew the pictures and put the pictures on the graph. If all the children took a piece of paper and drew their shoe and then taped it onto the graph, that'd be a pictorial graph. And a symbolic graph uses symbols that's on the squares that are like that, or a check, or maybe even just a dot. So there's three types of graphs you can use. For children, of course, the concrete is the most powerful, but pictorial graphs also work, especially if they label it and they claim it as theirs. So now you're going to take your treasures and you're going to graph your treasures on your